Accra. Talking Point comes to you live this and every Sunday with issues of national concern, and we engage you in informed decision-making. We are also streaming live on GBC Ghana Online, on Facebook, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and on the radio, Unique 95.7. We welcome those listening to us. The finance ministers last week, Wednesday, was in Parliament to read the 2021 budget statement and economic policy. His presentation highlighted, among others, policies to address the unemployment among our youth, economic reforms, an e-levy introduction, and other policies that are aimed at increasing revenue generation and blocking potential leakages. As expected, the minority have kicked against many of the proposals, while the members of the ruling party hail the budget as a bold next step. The divergent views by the major parties are illustrated in how they have characterized the budget. The NPP call it the Ajinkwa budget, and the NDC are calling it Krum Ayashi. Stay with us tonight as we analyze the 2022 budget, the good, the not so good, and delve deeper into areas that, like we say in Ghana, need further and better particulars. We encourage you to join in the discussion by sending your messages during our show using our WhatsApp number 055-744-6429. With me in the studio tonight on my far left, the Honorable Festus Ewa Kofi. He's MP for Upper Dentura East. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And my immediate left is Honorable Inyan Isiam. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have via Zoom Professor Ebo Turkson. He's the Coordinator, Economic Policy Management in the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. So let me start with you, Honorable Kofi. Before we delve into any of the more tenacious issues, I just want to get general impressions. What did you think about the budget, just very briefly and generally?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, we, the majority, are of the view that it is an Ajinkwa budget. In the sense that a budget, apart from ensuring that it complies with the 1992 Constitution and the Public Financial Management Act, must also be fairly, in terms of allocation of its national cake. It must also have priority in looking at the workforce, I mean the youth, which we have something called the Youth Stats. That's going to promote about 1 million jobs. Aside that, it has also ensured we have stability in terms of the macroeconomic parameters. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to go into details. Externally, we build adequate reserves that stabilize our CD to the various foreign currencies. The banking sector is very resilient, and now they have that capacity to lend to the private sector. They have surplus funds of over 40 billion. The economy has been stabilized in terms of the energy, and a country that has issues with its energy certainly cannot achieve its developmental projects. Okay. Social interventions, if I want to list them, it can be about, it will run into hundreds. And our medium-term objective also is in line with the National Development Plan. So you can see that our projections for 2022 to 2025, the medium term, are quite very moderate, but they are achievable because of the track record that MPP has set. Okay. That's why we said it's an Ajinkwa budget.
Okay. All right. So, Honorable Folson,
thank you.
Your views, please.
Thank you, Madam. Prior to the introduction of the 2022 budget, the people of Ghana expected the government of the day to have implemented certain measures. In fact, the major concern of the average Ghanaian had to do with the fact that there was huge unemployment, hardships in the economy, terrible economic conditions, and most importantly, rising public debt levels to the extent that the international community, the investing community, have doubts as to whether Ghana will be able to repay their debt or not. For me, that is fundamental. And I expected this budget to have addressed it. To my dismay, the policies in the budget will get it worse. I say this because I have not witnessed any bold measure in this budget that seeks to address the hardships that we have. In fact, it's going to get it worse with taxation. The so-called use that seeks to create 1 million jobs is another slogan, in the sense that the $1 billion that they are billion Ghana cedis that they are talking about to create $1 million will mean that you create one job with 1,000 Ghana cedis for the year. How possible is that? How on earth will one person survive 1,000 Ghana cedis for a year as salary? You can't create a job with 1,000 Ghana cedis per person. So again, it's another slogan. Then most importantly, the youth unemployment thing that we are talking about, apart from the youth start that they discuss it, it is not even, they are not backing it with the fiscals. The budget is only grammar. I've not seen any bold attempt to solve the problems. So, in short, if you ask my opinion about this budget, it is a budget that is going to make the situation worse. The people of Ghana should brace for a difficult year going forward. And I see nothing but hardship in this budget, unfortunately.
Okay, Professor Turkson, if I can bring you in here. Honorable Forsen talked about policy. So I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts, or what kind of policy rationalization or do you think underpins what the budget is hinged on? Oh, okay. So, Honorable Professor Turkson is not
available.
So, let me start with the elephant in the room. There are two big issues that came out of the budget as a fallout. The first was the road tolls, and the second was the e-levy. So maybe I'll start with the e-levy and try and get more, or maybe, like I said in the introduction, further and better particulars, because there are so many divergencies. Everybody has what they think is happening. The Deputy Minister of Finance has been going around talking about what will and will not be taxed. And just yesterday, I think ASEPA issued a statement saying that what he's saying is inaccurate. So with you here, Honorable Kofi, maybe you could just go through and let Ghanaians know specifically what is going to be taxed, what is not going to be taxed, and why the e-levy.
Right. Thank you very much. We have a slogan not only for the MPP, but the NDC. Always want to increase the tax base because of the large section of the informal sector. And if I can give you the statistics of people who are paying tax in this country, the population of over 18 million, 30.8 million, we have potential 18 million that are paying tax, and out of that, only 2.4 persons are registered to pay income tax as at August 2021. Only 49,109 entities are registered to pay corporate tax. And you know we have corporate tax and income tax constituting about 40% of our tax revenue. We have 136,198 entities registered as business at the Registrar General. And only 33.3% of the employees contribute to income tax.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was at an event not too long ago, a couple of months ago, ICA, and this statement was made, and there was a tax specialist there who said this idea that only 10% of Ghanaians are paying taxes, when we are paying VAT, we are paying company taxes. So maybe we need to be clear about the kind of tax we're talking about, because on a regular basis...
If you remember, I did indicate the direct tax.
Yes.
Yes.
So
which comes in the form of income tax or corporate tax.
Exactly.
Indirect taxes are taxes on goods and services.
Direct tax.
The indirect taxes.
So what you're talking specifically about is the government, the
direct taxes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
That's what you're...
And let me ask this question. What is the point of somebody going to buy papaya, holding cash? You go there, buy it, pay it, and pay VAT on it or national health insurance on it. But somebody sitting at his comfort at home who just pay it through the memo who decide not to. It's not VATable. It doesn't pay tax. It's an effort to avoid tax. So the essence is that we are giving the individual the option whether to pay tax or not. But when we bring all this into the bracket, via memo or by cash, you are supposed to pay tax. I mean, it will give us a broadened base, because we are very much aware that the informal sector is so huge that it's a clear leakage of our income.
Okay, so maybe the question I asked you, I'm going to break it down to, I'll let you ask you. This question is, this is my small salary I get at the end of the month. I pay income tax. The remaining two, when I go to a store, Palace Mall, China Mall, etc., I pay small tax on the items. When I top up power, I pay tax. Water, I pay tax. My bankers will charge me the moment I use my ATM. And now there's a Momo levy. How will I enjoy this fraction of my salary that I have?
Yes, in as much as you already indicated that when you go to mall or other purchases that you are making, you pay tax. It's not too different from the memo tax.
Okay.
It's not too different.
Okay.
One is on goods and services. The distinction is that if there's money transfer from one account to the other, probably one can see that there hasn't been any transaction. That is why probably you can argue that there shouldn't be any tax on it.
Okay, so I'll let you answer, but welcome, Professor Turkson. Welcome to the show. I will have Honorable Forson respond to the question I asked, and then I'll come to you with the introduction. So.
First, let my colleague be aware that it is wrong for anyone to create impression that only about 2-point-something million people pay taxes in this economy. It's not true. That is not true. We have two major tax handles, indirect and direct taxes. Yes, I can understand that because of the structure of economy, number of people are engaged in the farming and trading sector, and they don't normally do their tax returns, so you find it difficult to get them for the purposes of getting to tax them on income. But almost everyone, including the little child that buys SME, pays VAT, and that is tax. So in terms of the direct taxes, almost everyone pays direct taxes. In fact, this water, if you are to buy it from a place that is VAT registered, you pay tax on it. So almost everyone pays taxes. So it is very wrong anytime I hear the government making that kind of statement. To the elephant in the room, there is everything wrong with this e-tax. Everything wrong with it.
Still sweating, man.
I'm really surprised that my brothers from the MPP are trying to rationalize this e-tax. It is a tax that has three legs. The first leg is a tax on Momo. The second leg is a tax on inward remittance. And finally, a third leg, which is a tax on bank transfers. Let me start from the third one, the bank transfers. I was really surprised when I heard the government talk about the fact that they are taxing the bank transfer, the transaction itself. My brother, there's nowhere in this world that bank transfer, the capital, the amount that is subject, that you are transferring is taxable. There's nowhere in the world. In fact, I've done my research, I've gone through, and I've not seen one single country in this world that is taxing bank transfer. What countries do is that they tax the bank charges on the transaction and not the transaction itself. Okay. I've seen a number of them, and I can give you an example. When we have the financial activity tax and the financial transaction tax, that financial transaction tax is not on the transaction itself, it's on the fees that people, the banks are actually collecting. But indeed, no country in this world charges VAT, what do you call it, impose a VAT, a tax on the transaction itself. Ghana will be the first country. My sister, unfortunately, this is going to affect the banking sector big time. It is going to affect the economic growth of this economy. Bad. And I say this for a number of reasons. If I'm a company and I engage in trading, any time that I engage in transfer, paying a client of mine, for instance, you work with, say, GBC, and GBC has to pay your wages. They don't pay you cash, they pay you through the bank. So when they do bank transfer, it's going to cost GBC. They'll be compelled to withdraw the money cash and obviously to pay you cash. That will mean they are making some savings. And it's natural in any businesses. If a company is doing international transfers, and master, you are a banker, and you know this, that nobody does this. So I'm surprised that this government is making, in fact, conceiving even the idea to tax, what do you call it, bank transaction. It's not acceptable. Okay. Not long ago, the MPP on the same bank transaction, the MPP opposed a tax that seeks to impose VAT on bank charges in this economy. Okay. The answer was that they thought it is against the growth of the banking sector. So what has changed?
Okay, so you said three things. I wanted to go, I'll come back to you. I wanted to go quickly to Professor Turkson. Prof, good evening and welcome again to Talking Point. What are your thoughts about the e-levy tax that has been imposed?
Thank you, Dr. Wright, and good evening to your viewers. I think that it's important we situate the analysis in the fact that there is no doubt that Ghana needs to raise enough revenue to fund whatever expenditures that we have. Now, the e-levy that has come up for discussion is quite unfortunate, and I'm happy that the former Deputy Minister of Finance, who was one of those proponents who were talking about charging taxes on fees that banks were charging. I remember I had a debate with him about 5 years ago about that tax, that when you impose a tax on the banks, they'll transfer the tax to the average consumer. And it's the same thing that this government is trying to do. Look, if they go on to even charge the bank charges and impose the tax on it, the banks will transfer the tax to the consumers. And therefore, there is no reason why we should impose a tax on financial services, because we are looking at financial inclusion. We are looking at ensuring that most of our transactions are done online, so that instead of going to the bank to cash money and go and deposit into another account, I should have that freedom to transfer the money online and make use of our digital drive or whatever you're talking about. But it is always the case that the low-hanging fruit is what our policymakers always look out for. Now, it is simple. If I'm going to incur a cost to transfer my money, I would not go on to involve myself in that transaction. Because we are talking about 1.75. And we are talking about, at times, huge amounts of money that are, right? And so if it's going to come at a cost me, I'm not going to transfer that money. So you end up having a situation where most of the time, the expectation of the policymaker in collecting that amount of tax revenue never comes to fruition, because economic agents respond in ways that they would not be able to. And so this e-levy, whether it's on bank, the only part of the e-levy that I believe is something that we can look at is remittances. I don't have any problem with that. And then second, also on sales transactions online. Because if I sit in the comfort of my home and I buy something on Jumia, I buy food from a food vendor online, I do not have any problems if 1.75 of that sales value is going to be taxed. And I don't think that Ghanaians would have a problem with it if they are paying that amount of money for those transactions. But for Momo and bank transactions, no. The central bank, for instance, as we speak, is looking at ways in which it's going to introduce an ECD for transactions. How do you expect Ghanaians to buy into that if the government is looking to tax such transactions? I think that there are a lot of good things that are well thought out in this budget. But the issue with the e-levy is a no. I think the government has to take a relook at it and find avenues of generating revenue. I'll give you one, because I don't want to normally say, no, we can't do this and not offer any alternative. There's a 0.25 out of the 1.75, which is about 14.3%. That is supposed to go to road infrastructure. Now, the government is looking at raising about 6.9 billion for the e-levy. And that 14% of that is just underneath 1 billion. Madam, if we have 2.5 million cars in Ghana, and each car is paying as part of its roadworthy for a year, 400 cedis on average, we are going to be able to raise that 1 billion for road infrastructure. And so why would we saddle the old man or the old farmer, who possibly might be doing transactions about 100 cedis, in a rural area where there is no more travel road, but has to pay for the road infrastructure? We need to target, and you see, because we fail to do proper targeting, we go about collecting revenue that invariably we are not able to even collect out of projected revenue. The 6.9 billion that we are projecting to collect out of the illegal is not going to happen. Because already, like I said elsewhere, I have an artisan that I was paying money to 2 days ago. Through Momo, he said, no, boss, I don't need Momo. Give me my money back. So people have started responding to that already. So whatever projections we have about the quantum of Momo transactions will drop significantly. And so that's why the provider, why would you do that for insurance? Why would you do that to a cashless society that we are trying to build?
Yeah, so I'm going to let...
that we take a second look at that.
Okay, I'm going to let Honorable Forson come in because I interrupted what he was saying to get your views. I know you almost mirror what he's saying in
but he says something. It's important to make the point. Professor Botekson in his statement had said that, yes, previously, I remember we had an engagement on the issue of taxing the charges that the banks actually make from the customers. This MPP administration, then in opposition, opposed it vehemently and said that they will remove it and gave all sorts of excuses. It is something that globally, in Europe, is something that is acceptable. It's something that, in fact, OECD had papers on it and it's acceptable. Unfortunately, what these people seek to do, they are not charging the bank charges. They are actually charging the transaction. In fact, the bad thing is that these businesses are going to suffer. The second one I wanted to talk about had to do with the fact that they intend to tax inward transfers. Transfers constitute a huge part of the country's reserve. In fact, in the year 2021, this year, government has raked in about 1.6 billion Ghana cedis in remittances. It has gone a long way to stabilize our currency, in a way. This has actually helped the central bank to show up the reserves. Going forward, you are saying that you are going to impose a tax on it. What this will mean is that if care is not taken, it will bring about black marketing. Our people in the diaspora will not be sending money home any longer. They'll find a nice way to get someone to exchange the money for them. Unfortunately, if I'm living out there and I'm sending money to my parents for the purposes of housekeeping, and you are saying anytime my parent goes for the money, you are going to tax 1.75%. Yes, I may be living out there doing 3, 4, 5 jobs, have paid my taxes already. My savings that I'm sending home, you are asking me that savings you are going to tax it for the purpose of what? There's no justification for this. And above all, the mobile money you are talking about. I'm aware in my constituency that most people keep the mobile money wallet as their savings. Now you are telling me that if I have some money in my wallet, which is my savings, you are going to tax it. You have collapsed the mobile money industry. So clearly, this is a tax that is not acceptable. Yes, I understand and I agree that digital taxation is something that is coming up all over the world. But no country has structured digital taxation in these lines. In fact, it is mainly on online buying. Online buying, that if you are buying from Amazon, buying from eBay, those are the ones that you tax. But to do such a thing, I do not think is the way to go. But we have said, the minority, we have said that we do not support this tax. It is not going to support the digitization effort of the country. In fact, it's going to send Ghana back about 2 decades, and we will not support this. So we have made it clear, and the minority leader has spoken and has given us okay for us to communicate on their lines.
I think we could stay on this for the entire show, but for the purposes of being able to get into other issues on the budget, I wanted to talk to you, Honorable Kofi. Maybe you can talk about the expenditure versus the revenue.
Right.
Because one is 130 billion, 137 billion is the expenditure, and 130, and 100 billion is the revenue. So I wondered, a lot of people are worried about this gap that we always have in our budgets. It's not just yours. Every year we tend to spend more than we bring in. So I just wanted you to just talk a little bit about that gap and how you see that going forward.
Well, the bottom line of this gap is the fiscal budget threshold. Last year we closed with 9.4%. We are projected to go to 7.4%. We intend to normalize this by 2024 to get to the fiscal stability threshold of 5%. We have total income here, total revenue of 100 million, and intend to spend expenditure of 125, giving us an overall balance commitment of 35, including arrears of 37. That is giving us the 7.4% GDP to this deficit. Like I indicated, it's not strange, because if you look at the expenditure increase last year because of the COVID, and we cannot take 1 year to recover this expenditure. It takes time. That's why we've given ourselves the next 3 years that we're going to normalize it and make sure we get to the 5% threshold. So, and we need revenue. We need revenue to agree on that. That is why if you look at the revenue, the tax on domestic, we have the provision of e-transaction levy of 6.9 as we are discussing. And this represents about 8% of our total revenue. Should we take this one out, it means this deficit is going to go up by another 7 million, giving us a total deficit position of 46 billion. How are we going to resolve it? We have just one way. If we want to finance the deficit, then we have to borrow. And borrowing, as he indicated, it appears they have the conception that MPP has borrowed more than NDC, which is not the case.
Oh, wow.
I'll give you the figures.
Okay, give me the figures.
I'll give you the figures. So if we are unable to collect this e-levy, it means we are adding to this deficit another 7 million, and that will take us to 44 billion. And that will probably even increase the deficit ratio of 7.4 to beyond 9%. And that is not what in the short to medium term we have planned to. We want to normalize it come 2025. So if you look at 2025, the percentage to the GDP, we are indicating here 4.2%. And we'll be at 4.5 come 2024. Next year, 2023, we are looking at 5.5%. This year is 7.4%. We only have to increase our tax base. We only have to bring in more revenue. The other option to borrow will not help the economy.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about increasing the tax base. And I say that because I think in the U.S., September 2021, 1% of the rich contribute about 40% of the taxes, the federal income taxes. So the increasing of the tax base, I think we need to look at how we are increasing it, because just the numbers, I think, may not necessarily get us where we want to be, because 90% of everybody else, I think 5% do another 4%, and 90% do the 20%. So I think that balancing also has to be there as we have this conversation. Before you come in, Honorable Forson, I want to ask Professor Turkson, do you think there are enough aggressive revenue generation options embedded in this budget?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm excited that for the first time we are almost hitting 20% of GDP, which is a good thing. I mean, we're having very low levels of revenue, and for the first time we are looking at 20% of GDP. I'm also excited that I saw a deliberate attempt to collect property taxes, property rates, with the announcement that there was going to be a platform to allow district assemblies to have a common platform, of possibly using the electronic way of collecting these taxes, assessment and collection of the taxes. So that far is good. I'm also excited that for the first time also, the government is taking a look at going to use the Ghana card, which, even though it was not clearly stated in the budget, is the data that we are told that we don't have, where about 80% of those who are supposed to pay income taxes, we have data on them to collect those taxes.
Okay.
I think that our focus should be on that. And there are so many innovative ways in which we can make those who are not paying income taxes pay taxes. And I think that the one bit that I disagreed with Honorable Forson was that when you say that only a few people pay taxes, we mean income taxes. Obviously, indirect taxes are paid by almost everyone. So we mean the income taxes. Countries that are well-resourced collect majority of their taxes from income taxes.
Okay.
I mean, in Africa, we tend to have very high levels of value-added tax because it's the easier way to tax consumers. But what we need is the aggressiveness in collecting income taxes. And we can do so in so many ways. All government services should be tied to tax returns. So supposing I'm going to renew my national health insurance, I'm in the informal sector, I need to indicate how much taxes I paid the previous year. In the US and other countries, you want to get a passport, you want to get an ID card, you need to show evidence that you filed your tax returns. Otherwise, you don't get access to. So we need to begin to tie those things to. I'm excited that the Ghana card is going to be linked to our tax certification numbers. And so it is something that we need to take a second look at.
Okay.
There's such a policy. There's also something that the government has indicated that they are going to make sure that the law is passed. We need to rationalize our exemption policy.
Okay.
If we are able to do that, of course, we need to attract investors here. But we should be careful about how generous we are in giving them those incentives. When they come in, we don't even get the benefit that was supposed to be assured, given the incentives that we're giving to them.
Okay.
So we need to rationalize our exemption policy, make sure that we collect enough revenue.
Okay, all right. So, Honorable Forson.
We should be even more worried about the gap you're talking about. First, let me point to you that the fiscal deficit for 2020 is not 9.4. In fact, it's 15.6. That was the fiscal deficit, 15.6% of GDP. In the year 2021, the budget is projecting 12.1 overall fiscal deficit, not 9.4. The 9.4 excludes the financial sector and then the energy payment. So it's 12.1. But let me say this. Even the 12.1 that they are projecting, if care is not taken, we'll end up not getting it by the end of the year. And I tell you, I'll give you a reason. The revenue to date, as at 1st January to 30th September, happens to be 37 billion Ghana cedis. They had projected that they will end the year with 55 billion. What this means is that even though we had on an average of about 12 billion Ghana cedis per quarter for the first 3 quarters of the year, they are projecting 18 billion Ghana cedis for the last quarter. I have my doubts that we'll get there. So likely, if they do not correspond with expenditure cut, then it will mean that the 12.1% fiscal deficit as a percentage to GDP will override it. And if that happens, then debt is going to increase because you certainly have to finance it. In the year 2022, that is where I'm even more worried. In fact, granted that they are going to get 55 billion Ghana cedis as tax revenue for the year 2021. They have projected that the year 2022, they are going to get about 80 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenue. 80 billion. So this means that within a period of 1 year, we're expecting revenue growth of about 45%. In nominal terms, about 25 billion Ghana cedis. But let me break down this 25 billion. Let me give them a growth of, let's say, of 7%. Let me be very generous like a Father Christmas. 7% for over the 55 billion. That gives me, let's say, 3 billion Ghana cedis. Okay, so 3 billion. Then they are telling us the e-levy is giving us 6.9. Another, again, let me be generous again, 7 billion. So that gives you 10 billion. Let me assume, even though the area has written that the benchmark value will give them 700. Let me say because of the growth, yes, I'll give them 1 billion. So that gives you 11 billion. That 11 billion tax exemption, how much will it give you? Let's say 1 billion. So 11 billion, give and take about 15 billion, maximum. Yet you are projecting 25 billion. So you could see that the fiscal deficit for the year 2022, again, is understated by at least 1.5% of GDP. That is where I have my worry. And the gap that we are talking about 37 billion, may not actually manifest. Yes, I heard the professor when he talked about the fact that when we say people don't pay taxes, it also means that people don't pay indirect taxes. But you see, taxation is a broad word. So if someone says that you don't, majority of Ghanaians don't pay taxes, it's an unfair statement. It's an unfair statement. So if you say that majority of us do not pay indirect taxes, then you are making sense. Direct taxes, then you are making sense. But let me say this. Per the structure of our economy, yes, majority of our people are cocoa farmers. The law exempts them from paying income tax on cocoa. So what sort of taxes are they going to, self-assessment are they going to go through and pay? Yes, you have presumptive tax for, what do you call it, the small traders. And they pay presumptive tax. And you are saying that they don't pay taxes. They pay taxes. Yet because presumptive tax is calculated in a way equivalent to VAT, if it's not taken, you would think they are not paying taxes. Yeah. But they are paying taxes. Yeah. So you see, the problem we have as a country, we should not only assume that we are not doing well in collecting taxes. We should also look at the expenditure. We should also look at the expenditure, because the expenditure, there's huge expenditure that I believe is frivolous. I believe those expenditures need to be cut as well. So if you're looking at budgeting, look at revenue and look at expenditure. Don't look at only one side, because if you continue looking at one side, if care is not taken, you know what they are doing. These taxes and taxes and taxes will manifest in a form of inefficiencies in the economy. And the economy will be the one that will suffer. So, my brother, please tell your government to rethink. Its policies are not helping all of us.
Okay, so
policies are not helping us.
I want to talk about unemployment. I want to talk about that because I think that is something that everybody is concerned about. We've had a lot of shows so far on youth unemployment in general. I wanted to take you to an interview that the president did in 2017 to Reuters, and it appeared in African News. And this is what he said. He said, the debilitating and the confidence-sapping problem affects everyone. We can argue what the official rate of unemployment is, but we can all see the desperation of our young people. They want to work, but there are no jobs, and some of them are being driven to unacceptable behavior. We have a veritable time bomb on our hands. So with all the interventions that all governments, successive governments have introduced, why do you think unemployment of the youth is such an elusive issue? I'll start with you, Honorable Kofi.
Thank you very much. I'm happy you said the successive governments in various ways have all made an attempt to solve this unemployment issue, but it still persists. Look at the rate of youth unemployment in the country. And the interventions that the MPP government, through the NAPCO and now the Youth to Start and all other programs, that we still have high unemployment. No doubt about that. As a country, what is the competitive advantage? Which of the sectors can we, improve? What of the sectors can we invest that can give us high propensity to create employment for our youth? And I believe it is that agriculture. And that is why we have programs in the agriculture sector so that we can motivate the youth to go into agri. It's key. If you want to jump from agri and go to manufacturing or any other industry or services, it will not work. We need that collaborative effort. All the stakeholders. How can we make agriculture attractive for the youth to go into it? Agriculture goes beyond just tilling the land. We have aquaculture. So much programs is now coming up from the Ministry of Fisheries. Youth can go into aquaculture and the related, farming activities. So, how much are we spending in the agriculture sector, and which people are we targeting? And that is the program that MPP has now. That we're going to revitalize the economy, pushing so much money so that we can make the agriculture attractive for the youth. Without that, the unemployment will. Government cannot absorb everybody who competes in university. Even the technical students who compete in university are also expecting the government to absorb them in the public sector, which is very serious to us. For now, we may see the statistics as very low, but in the next 10 years to come, the number of students who are finishing school and the number of people who are able to absorb into the system, are we able to absorb even 50% of it? And I see the agriculture sector is the only way.
So
and that is why
and entrepreneurship, I think that's another
That is why we have indicated it in our budget. That is why we are saying it is an adequate budget, because we are going to bring a whole lot of people under the entrepreneurship.
Okay. Okay. So, Honorable Foster.
Madam, in the 2020 budget, the NPP government talked about the fact that they are going to create jobs through Ghana Cares. Obatampa. In fact, this is about we are in the 10th month or the 11th month in the implementation of the 2021 budget. Sadly, I have not seen much from job creation as long as Obatampa is concerned. So government need to give us some answers as to what they've done, because we were all made to believe that they are going to do so much using Obatampa. Again, very typical of NPP. They've come out with something they called You Start, creating impressions that they are going to create 1 billion jobs, a million jobs. Yeah, and then they've said to us that they are going to invest up to about 1 billion Ghana cedis 1 billion Ghana cedis.
Plus other international subventions and support.
But it surprises you.
Yes.
This is the budget statement. I'm referring you to the budget statement, page 264, in fact, appendix 4D, summary of MDA expenditure allocation. Okay, so you have the 2024 there, and then it takes you all the way up to the year. So it gives you the medium-term projection up to 2024. For me, what I see here, I do not believe that UStart will be something that will create the jobs for us, even if you look at the entire medium-term expenditure projections, MTEF projections. Because, for instance, assuming you are investing $1 billion Ghana cedis, and you a billion Ghana cedis, and your intention is to create 1 million jobs. So if you divide the 1 billion by 1 million, then it means that you are going to invest 1,000 Ghana cedis on an individual.
So read further under that program.
Yes, what are you
we say we're going to seek other international support.
Where are you getting it from? It's so vague. When you make those kind of statements, it's so vague. It's not. It's so vague. We've heard so much of this. I mean, for me, they are useless statements. Useless statements in the sense that when you say this without any specific revenue allocation or without you engaging them, you are giving the youth false hope. My brother, let me be honest with you. Youth unemployment is a national security crisis. It's something we should tackle it frontal, head on.
Yes.
We should not use lip service to solve youth unemployment. So if you say 1 billion Ghana cedis, I do not have a problem. Use 1 billion Ghana cedis, but don't create impression that you are going to use 1 billion Ghana cedis to create employment.
So
I'm an MP, and I'm concerned about it.
Under Appendix 4G that you talk about, that's 402,696.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All
so
right.
you notice the cumulative is under 1 billion that we are talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is my concern. There's a lot of talk, but nothing much is happening. Unfortunately, we are not creating enough job to take care of the youth that are coming up. The population is growing. We had a lot of youth coming up, but we are not creating much jobs to be able to match the number of people that are actually coming up. Yeah. It's something that we should all assist. And sitting in Parliament, we need to have bipartisan discussion on this matter, because it's something that affects my constituency and affects his constituency as well. It affects the entire country, and we should confront it head on. The lip service must stop. Too much talk, very little. It's done for the people. You talk too much. You talk too much. Do the job instead of talking in slogans.
Bipartisan is very important because in many issues, those of us who are on the outside looking in, all we see are the divergent views that are held and not coming together to come up with a solution, a workable solution for everything. So I'm very glad to hear you say the Honorable, and I'm sure the Honorable Kofi will take you on. Professor Turkson, before you came on, I mentioned in the beginning that there were some elephants in the room when this budget was read or fallout, and one was e-levy, and the other, of course, was the road tolls. So I wanted to get your thoughts about that, because, I mean, in all fairness to the Minister of Finance, when he came on the floor, his statement was very clear. He said this will take effect immediately the budget is approved. And within 24 hours, the road tolls were taking off. So, and we had all this hula baloo coming up, and then eventually we were told that although the Minister for Roads had eventually said that this was in his communique, I think the first communique he sent out was that this was because of the budget. This is now an administrative action that is being taken. So what are your thoughts about this whole issue of the road tolls, and do you think there are any potential significant revenue losses because the year hasn't ended and we've truncated it?
Okay, thank you. Before I do that, let me add my voice to the youth unemployment issue that you brought up. I didn't have a take on that. I think we need to realize that Ghana as a country has failed over the years to support the private sector, to expand and create jobs. The cost of doing business in this country is too high. So the private sector has failed to get that space that will allow them to create more jobs. The failure of our educational system to train our young men and women to come up and not only look for white-collar jobs, but also to see how best they can also be innovative and then create their own jobs. And then our cultural and historical factors where we leave school and we think that the public sector should be we should go. We all want to work in a bank, want to work in a formal sector. So all of these things have played into this. But the most important reason why we've not created jobs is inadequate support to the private sector. And I think that, like the Honorable member has said, Ghana as a country has to sit down to begin to have a discussion on that and to see how best we can equip the private sector to be the area where you can generate the jobs. Then with the road to it's quite unfortunate that it has led to a lot of issues about legality. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a lawmaker, I'm an economist, but for me, what struck me most was the haste in which this policy was supposed to start. I've always known that when a budget is put out there, it is meant for a particular year. And therefore, this year being 2021, we have projected our revenue based on our road tolls and all of that. And so I was expecting that if there was going to be any time for this to start, it was going to be 1st January. And the reason why that was my expectation was that, one, there's an economy around our road tolls. There's no doubt about it. Whether you say it's illegal or not, there are people who are living by selling soft drinks, what you call the supermarkets, just around the road tolls because of the traffic that generates. So if you are coming up with a policy that is going to affect those who are earning a living, you need to give these economic agents enough time to also readjust and then get elsewhere. But for this to happen all of a sudden came as a shock to those households. Two, we hear that those who are in the attendants who dish out the tickets and collect the money, we know they're from the disabled fraternity, and we're trying to help them out. We hear that they're going to absorb into the ministry, but I mean, I've heard interviews with some of them, and they said this came out a shock to them. Nobody discussed anything with them, and all of that. So I don't know why the haste, and I can understand, and I'm one of those who support the government for taking away the road tolls because it was counterproductive. The loss of hours in traffic and the productive costs to this government or this economy alone because of the traffic and the loss of fuel and all of that was quite enormous. There's an estimate that was over 400 million. Now we are collecting only 70 million in terms of the road toll. So it meant that we had to do something about it. So it's important that as we speak, we ask ourselves the simple question: were we ready to quickly bring it to an end? Yes, it's going to benefit those who are driving in traffic for long hours. But then what about those who, one, would have lost their livelihoods around those economic activities that were taking place around the tolls? And then two, what happens to our revenue? There's going to be a revenue shortfall, there's no doubt about it. Will this have an impact on our fiscal deficit for this year? If it does have an impact on fiscal deficit for this year, then it means, therefore, that we are going to have to borrow more to close the gap. So why the haste in abolishing the road tolls, which I thought was a good policy to do, and not let this start on the 1st of January, so that we can readjust and then we all recalibrate and know that from 1st of January, there are no road tolls, and then all agents around that economic activity that take place there would also readjust. And then we don't lose any revenue, potentially. There's nothing to talk about, but yes, it is revenue that we budgeted for, which even if it's 10 million, could be used for something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure why that was done.
That's the rush. Okay, so, Honorable Kofi, why the rush?
Thank you very much. As I did indicate in my introductory remarks, that the 2022 budget was well accepted and embraced by the civil society with this fallout of the road toll. I believe the technocrats are looking into it. As rightly pointed out, we cannot look at the legalities in it, whether it was constitutional, right for the minister to have given that directives or not. That is not what we can discuss at this very juncture. But I think the technocrats are looking at it. Yes, it has social impact when we have our young ladies and our women selling around the toll booths.
And there are some men too.
And yes, I think that is their hue and cry, that they thought it was 2022 budget, and how come it was implemented in 2021, a day after the budget was read. So this is, you see, it's a listening government. And I believe our technocrats are going to work on it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So wonderful person. I mean, the budget is read and people give feedback and then they are able to massage it appropriately. What are your thoughts on all this?
When I say our brothers in the MPP are expert in slogans, people don't understand me. Before I move to this, let me point to you that in the budget statement, the minister informed the people of Ghana that 1 billion Ghana cedis will be used as seed fund for the purposes of establishing the U-Start. This is the budget statement. What has been projected in the fiscals to be given to U-Start is 385 million Ghana cedis. So you see, stop paying lip service.
Point of correction.
Lip service.
The minister said over a 3-year period.
Oh, so you are now confirming that they are giving them 385 million.
That is what the minister said.
So how can you create the 1 million jobs?
A 3-year period.
Okay.
Yes.
You see?
All right.
So you are creating 1 million jobs over 3 years. 1 million jobs with 385 million.
That is what we said.
You see, this is the problem I have with the MPP.
Okay.
There's a national crisis out there. You've read the budget with a nice slogan, creating impressions that problems will be solved tomorrow morning. The year will end and nothing will be done because you have not allocated resources for that. And I make reference to Appendix 4B, page 250 of your budget statement. 385 million Ghana cedis is the only amount you have provision for the purposes of U-Start. Okay. It can't solve the problem.
Okay.
Madam, taking you back. Well, I'm hearing the 3 years from you for the first time. Because the finance minister never said it.
Because right now, let's talk about the road tolls and your thoughts about
that. The issues on the road toll, let me make this. The government was in haste for a reason, a simple reason. They wanted something to cover up the taxes they've imposed left, right, and center, and the fact that hardships is going to go to the roof. That was the only reason why they decided to, in hurry, to get the road tolls dysfunctional. That was the only reason why. Because let me tell you this: it is unconscionable for the minister responsible for road to write such a letter. Someone who is a lawyer, someone who is a third member of parliament, for him not to be aware that reading a policy does not necessarily mean that you are actually stopping the implementation of the policy. In fact, that policy became a law through an act of parliament. So it is only until you go to parliament to repeal that law, you cannot implement it. You cannot implement it.
I think okay, so let's, because of the law issue that we can't address now, let's put it aside. I think I heard you say...
Madam, we can address this. We are all lawmakers.
I thought I heard you say on another show that in spite of all that, you welcome it because of the ease of traffic and all those things. Okay.
Of course. Madam,
so there are two sides.
In fact, you see, we need to address the policy. Okay? So implementation of the policy is different from the policy itself. Okay. But first of all, let me say that Ghana gets about 72 million Ghana cedis from road tolls. I have no problem with that. Letting it go, I have no problem. Okay. But let us be aware that there are other environmental issues that we should be aware of. Okay.
Unfortunately,
the economy-wide issues. Yes. This government is a government that when they impose a policy, they fail to think about the fact that others are going to suffer because of their policy. It is for that same reason why our market women, those who are selling the hawkers, are complaining today. Okay. Because some of them were not given the opportunity to adjust. So that is a problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I know there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot that we could go on and stretch. We didn't even talk about some of the climate change issues that were in the budget. There was a red issue that I wanted us to get to. But hopefully, eventually, we'll come back and have a discussion on this. So
this one will get matters worse for us.
I want to thank all of you for joining us for tonight's Talking Points, and a very special thank you to my guests, Honorable K.S. Atuba Forson, MP for Ajumako Wenyi Mesiam. Next to him is Honorable Professor Zewa Kofi, MP for Upper Dientra East. And via Zoom, we had Professor Abu Turkson, the Coordinator, Economic Policy Management Program, Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. I'm Dr. Name, and this has been Talking Points. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching. Good night, good luck, and as always, please be and stay safe till next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.